Go Dave.
Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, fiscal year 20 budget workshop held in the Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island. Roll call.
Councilman Licciardi?
Here.
Councilman Messier?
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson? Here. Council Vice President D'Amico?
Here.
Council President Goslin?
Here.
There is a quorum.
All right, I'll start off. Obviously, we're here for one reason: the budget got voted down. We've had a couple weeks to look over, mull it, and whatever else. We've had conversations, I think individually with the town manager. I'm not sure who, but I know I've had conversations. I know Councilman D'Amico's had conversations. So we're here tonight to start all over. Basically, I just want to make it clear that the tax increase was not a 3.9% tax increase, which a lot of people who voted thought that. It was actually a 1.7% tax increase. And again, 1.7 means out of a $100 million budget, it's not rocket science, it's $1.7 million if you want to go to zero, or even less. But that's up to the council. There will be some tough decisions, I'm sure, to make now that the budget's gone. But I will say, could get voted down again, could get voted up, who knows? So, Mr. Manager, you want to give an update?
Actually, I do. I just have to, sorry, I'll rummage through all my pages. Some general comments as the council moves forward in this difficult process. The FY20 budget that was adopted by the town council, it was a spending plan that properly addressed the needs of the upcoming fiscal year and positioned the town for future years going forward. The budget as presented maintained the current services that the public currently expects and has. But being that, given that, you know, the public did vote down the budget. I don't know why, I mean, what individuals were thinking for individual decisions, but that's what the decision was. So now we go forward with the task ahead of us. And again, as we look at the budget, again, we have to remember that the school department budget is not a factor in this equation. They are level funded with their local appropriation. So, you know, they are, you know, not part of the reduction process. Wastewater treatment facility plant is not because it's an enterprise fund, as well as the civic center, although a few small elements are in general government, but the vast majority of expenses in the civic center are as an enterprise fund. And as we move forward, again, when we look at the budget, the construct of the budget, much of it is fixed, whether it be pensions, debt service, utilities, communications, healthcare, and fixed costs like hydrants and sanitation contracts. And again, there are contractual agreements with vendors as well as our employees through collective bargaining. So again, when we look at the budget, the place that we normally look at is services, commodities, capital equipment, staffing levels, and again, these items reflect some result of affecting programs or services. So again, the trick is to try to minimize those disruptions of services that we have currently. So with that, you know, I've gone through the budget with some assistance of directors. I know the council has, you know, your issues as well. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Any questions from the council? I want to ask I'll ask the council how you want to handle this. We can go department by department, or if you have ideas already written down, we can avoid all that. And we can start looking at if we're gonna cut, or, however, I know there's been some conversation as to whether or not this was a financially responsible budget. And I think we can agree in some aspects that it was. It was very financially responsible. We corrected the healthcare issues that were improperly budgeted. Healthcare going up $900,000, that's something that we could not avoid. Out of that 1.7, I just want to point out the key factors. 900 change of healthcare, 300 and something thousand for contract negotiations and what we were figuring as a council and as a group of what that's going to cost us with the new contracts. So that's 1.2 change, $250,000 into OPEB, which is 1.4. Another couple $100,000 in that 1.7 was our infrastructure, our capital improvements and whatever. So, it's up to the council on what they want to do from here. So, does anybody have anything in particular that they looked at over the past couple of weeks? Jay?
I have, but I've been going first the last 3 years there, so I'm going to share and let somebody else take the lead on this.
Well, I'll start. First of all, when we went through the process, we talked about nickel and diming. We talked about, how it feels like it's somewhat bare bones. We go through every line many times. We eliminate everything we can. We know that we have contracts in place. We know that we have contract negotiations. We know that we don't want to touch things like OPEB. We might need to. We know that we could probably use more positions within fire, within police, but instead we'll probably have to cut positions. Maybe Parks and Rec, I don't know. I have a couple ideas as to places we could cut. But I feel like we didn't do a very good job in getting the word out as far as what we had done and making people aware of the process and, the reality of the current budget. I think, we had such a small turnout, and there was another campaign to vote down the budget, which is a campaign that has essentially been, run for several years, and this year they were successful. I think it's a shame. I think it's, that we're gonna have to cut into a budget that we already took so much time to go through and to figure out. The manager's made some, he has some ideas as to where we should cut. We could start with those and talk about those.
I just don't think you can have it both ways. You can't maintain all the services you have and still make cuts. It's not possible. So when people say there's things we can cut, yeah, there is, but there's gonna be services you're gonna lose. That's a fact, no matter what. If we cut certain things, we're gonna lose certain services, for the most part. We're not talking about like papers and pencils, you know what I mean? We're talking about real things, whether it's jobs or departments or, that's the only way you're gonna cut a budget this size.
I agree with what David said as we start. I believe this was a very fiscally responsible budget. In some years past, budgets have been passed, and you can cut. But if you cut just to pass the budget, and at the end of the year you wind up in a deficit position, that's not the way to create a budget. So that's not something I would recommend. I believe that the town manager presented a budget to us back in March. We went through the process. We did make some changes. There are not a lot of frills. It is personnel costs, basically, that we're talking about, that are increasing here. There are a couple of things, and Ernie, thank you for forwarding your thoughts. I know you have had conversations with people. Yes, things like OPEB. Sure, you don't have to fund that. You can do pay-as-you-go, but that's not the responsible thing to do. At some point, you have to pay. Again, I do believe it is a fiscally responsible, and I think we should be cautious in cutting just for the sake of cutting, to make a number and then sit here a year from now looking at a deficit. I would also remind people that I believe our charter requires that we have a 5% surplus, set aside, funds set aside, we're not anywhere near that.
1%.
We're not even close to that. So, and in fact, we have in years past cut into that quite significantly. So, again, being fiscally responsible, there are no frills, and there are some hard decisions on cuts that perhaps have been suggested here. But I would not recommend being irresponsible.
Jay?
I made a list of some different things. I proposed some at the, before the first vote, which I still think they're options. I didn't look at this as a number to find a number, whether it's 200,000 or $1 million. But I did go through the budget again and did some trimming. And I think any suggestion that we make here tonight, there's going to be an effect on it, there's no question. Whether it's outside of personnel or it is personnel. But we just can't hand over the same budget. It's just going to go down again. And we're going to be back at square one for the third time. So,
Is there, I don't mean to cut you off, is there a minimum number that we have to like get to present a second budget? Is there?
Absolutely
No.
not.
No,
I don't know if there was a,
No.
I think if there are reasonable places to trim, we do. But I think, I don't foresee us cutting 1.7%. I think that we cut what we can, and then we go back to the people and we make them aware of everything.
I think,
Whether it's a letter or some kind of like, campaign on our part, so people know that it's time to go out and vote, and they're voting for a good budget.
well, I think, and educating them, however people want to vote, that's their choice, but I think at least if they have factual facts when they go in to vote, I mean, just like David said, where people thought it was a 3.9% as opposed to a 1.7, that's a big difference. And letting them know the facts, however they vote, it's up for the people to determine at that point, but
Right.
at least they have factual information.
Oh, I'd like to hear some ideas.
Jay, you said you had a list, right?
does anybody else have a list? Or am I the only one?
I have a list, but
Well, I think some of the suggestions that the town manager has made make sense. I think when you say you're not gonna replace desktops in the police department, those are things that will need to be replaced. They're outdated, but maybe next year, or if it can be funded through courts. I mean, that kind of stuff the things that you talked about, Jay, you talked about the mower and you, if the DPW director feels we need a mower, but maybe we just reconsider that next year.
well, I'll tell you, through the rumor mill, people have come and said to me, "Oh, I hear you're going to cut DPW," you're going to cut, and the council's never met. So,
No.
again, I don't know where that came from. Town manager might have said something. Could have came from a department head, whatever it may have come from. But again, ultimately, it's the council's decision. Personally, in my opinion, we have 22 people working on our DPW. When I first started here as a council person, there was closer to 80. We're down to 22. We can't get the stuff we need done in this town with the staff we have between vacations, injuries, sick time, and whatever else. If anybody's, I'm not going to beat around the bush, I've seen how many people come in per day. It's on average between 7 to 12 guys per day that we're working down at DPW. So we're going to cut it down to what? 7 guys, and then all of a sudden everybody's starting to get hurt because they're overexhausted, they're overworked, whatever it may be. There goes your workers' comp claims, there goes everything else. So you got to look at the pros and the cons here as far as when you're cutting positions. Because, at one time, I was a firm believer doing more with less. We've done that. We've done a lot in this town hall and DPW where we've done a lot more with less personnel. You look in this office, I'm going to tell you, I personally think there's a lot of cost savings with efficiencies, not with cutting positions. And I'll use the floater as an example, because I see you have that on your list as a part-time. That floater is not utilized properly. That floater goes to lunch the same time the other departments go to lunch. If the tax assessor's office goes to lunch, the door's closed. To me, that floater's, and this is what myself, Councilman Giroux, and other councilmen brought that floater on for, was because we have offices with one person in them, which would be the tax assessor, the building official. No offense to the finance department, but there's 6 to 8 people down there working, and when the tax assessor or the building official's office goes to lunch, that floater should be in one of those offices, and those offices should not be closed. I don't know, I was in here a few weeks ago. I was here for an hour. 3 people came into the clerk's office, realtors and whatever else, trying to find out how to get information on households and on homes and whatever. Sorry, they're closed, to come back later. Well, then there was other stuff going on, negotiations, union stuff. That office was closed for almost 2.5 hours. But the floater was nowhere to be found. The floater wasn't upstairs or downstairs. They were downstairs, where most of the employees are. And the general public wasn't getting affected. So, in my opinion, efficiencies. You know, Dave has come to us and brought the fact that DPW drives from that side of town to go back to DPW to take lunch. He brought that up at one of the meetings here. Those are the efficiencies. People gotta understand, we gotta work together, or else we will lose positions. You know, it comes to that aspect of it where, and you guys are in negotiations now, and unfortunately, I know I haven't been involved in the closed room negotiations. I know Councilwoman Williamson has. We've gotten updates, but since the budget got voted down, we really didn't get an update last time. And because we just said, we're gonna stop negotiations at this point. In my opinion, and just as my opinion only, that we could save a lot of money and a lot of manpower just with efficiencies in this town. And I put that on, and I'm sorry, but I put that on the town manager and the department heads. We as council members cannot sit here 24/7 and run this town and follow your department around. There's just no way. We all have our own jobs or whatever going on, so.
Mr. President, I agree completely with you about efficiencies. That is the only way communities can move forward in any type of effective way, given budget constraints, the legacy costs that every community has. And where we can find efficiencies, we will do that. But there are many efficiencies that cannot be made. That would require, efficiencies can be made, but they will be resulting in violations of contracts that we are negotiating now. So I agree completely. If things are done more efficiently, reorganization, yes, the town will run very well. Services will be delivered to the public that they expect on a timely basis. And I agree with you, management has a responsibility to ensure how we operate. But there are restrictions that prevent us from operating to the type of maximum efficiency that we would want as managers. So I agree with you. Efficiencies need to be made. We do them when we can. And at times, obstacles and obstructions are placed in our way. But I agree with you. Efficiency is the way to go.
And again, efficiency and accountability. I mean, you know there's stuff out there that needs to be addressed and fixed, and it's not fixed. And it's not fair to us as a council that you have employees who may not be doing their job, but because they got seniority, they don't care because they know they're not the ones going if we make cuts. It's the new hires who might be doing a great job. You know, that's the tough decision up here because the one thing I always look at is the list of employees.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the bottom and I look at the top because the middle and the top usually never get affected. It's the bottom 10 that get affected. And then all of a sudden it becomes a giant bumping process and a zoo once you make one position cut. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. You can get rid of 2 maintenance guys, okay? All of a sudden it becomes a bumping process because they got seniority. Are they even qualified to go into that position? But because of the seniority, they have the right to. So again, I just want to point that out to the council that, you know, you could sit there and say, let's get rid of Parks and Rec, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of that. All of a sudden, you got a 20, 30-year employee coming into a clerk's office saying, I want to be the deputy clerk, and bump the deputy clerk out, and then bump this one out, and then all of a sudden, you've got a whole new town hall. People who don't know the job yet. I mean, right now, I think a lot of our employees have been where they are for many years. You think about it, the tax assessor's office been there for many years, knows what they're doing, runs efficient. The building official's office, one person in there with a floater, has been there for many years, runs efficient. The clerk's office, the finance, the clerk's office seen 1 or 2 new bodies within the last 6 years. Finance has seen 1 or 2 new bodies over the last years, but they have so much knowledge and it runs efficient. I mean, there are minor things that you can look at, but DPW, I mean, you got guys leaving because of pay. You got guys leaving because of different reasons. I mean, me, Dave, I feel sorry for you because you're down to 22 and you got days 7 guys there. I mean, how can you run a town? How can you do street sweeping, pick up yard waste, pick up bulk, keep the town looking clean with 7 to 10 guys? It's virtually impossible.
And we, on the subject of DPW, we're doing bulk pickups on Fridays now,
Temporarily.
for the last couple of weeks, I mean, since the
Yeah.
budget, right?
During regular work hours.
I mean,
there's
unfortunately,
no
that may be a
overtime.
cut. The bulk pickup on weekends might have to stop.
But how much,
again, we're not
how much
cutting
is that slowing you
it.
down even more, because now Friday, that's all you're doing, right?
Again, I would say that everything you're saying is correct. But we are restricted in how we operate based upon collective bargaining agreements. And it is difficult to implement the things that you're asking under current situations. I don't want to get into too much, but you know, as a manager, you know, we have to abide by and are governed by these provisions. And they have been in effect a long, long time. And I'm sure the issues you're talking about probably go back to when you started on the council, some of these issues. I realize that. And I realize it's management's responsibility to maximize what we have and how we have to work. And again, that's what we try to do, and that's what our responsibility is. At times, it is very difficult. At times, it may border on impossible. But we do it. We come here every day. We plug away. We keep on trying to do the job that we are here to do. So, that's that.
All right, does everybody want to share their ideas?
Well, I went small and then I went, and these are just suggestions. It's not anything obviously set in stone, you know, on my end, but it's just different things I thought about. I'm still going to stick to a part-time HR director. I know it's not ideal, but again, just a suggestion. Of course, is an effect.
Can
We're
we
gonna take-
respond to them as they go, or do you want to wait?
I'll hear the whole list.
Well,
It's up to you.
You wanna do one at a
well,
time?
that way he was fresh in his mind.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
the,
Since we're currently without a director, a lot of my time has been spent in HR functions. All right. I have spent 5 hours dealing with a Department of Labor training issue, going to a hearing, I go to workers' comp court. The department is responsible for MFLA, workers' comp, TDI, COBRA, notifications, follow-up, verification of employees, accruals, which we haven't been done by personnel, and they should, for time earned for accruals, grievances, and I'll mention those, just regular correspondence, disciplinary actions, open enrollment twice a year, job postings, as you said, one job posting could lead to 5 or 6, and the process of having employees placed there. Entering new employees into the Tyler system, scheduling medical tests to be completed for new employees, new employee recruitment, dispatchers, police officers, and other employees, and we will be having a dispatcher and police recruitment coming up in the near future. Employees who are out sick, reviewing their cases for medical cases, making sure that appropriate paperwork is done from medical providers. Reviewing benefits with new employees, assisting with paperwork for new employees, healthcare updates and changes. Second, random drug testing, that's done by the personnel. And again, something hasn't been done, everything now is generally done by certified letter rather than emails, the appropriate way to do things. Proctoring tests for police and fire and other departments. And scheduling and proctoring those assisting in agility tests and things of that nature. Looking to review and make sure any new employees have background checks, CDL licenses, those are by the departments, but personnel should have copies to ensure compliance, and that's what we're doing now. EEO report, 1095 reporting for healthcare insurance reports, filing crop trust, claims to trust. That is for,
I can go on all night,
Yeah.
that's definitely a full-time position.
oh, I'm going on.
No, I'm sorry, but again,
Yeah,
I got
well,
more.
but that makes a point, and you talk about efficiencies, clearly, we're not being efficient with the town manager's time if he's doing that. And my understanding is from various departments that the response time and effort needed within the departments, because we don't have someone in that position at this point, makes all the departments less efficient. So I think that's something that we need to,
let's make it clear that we cut a part-timer right out of that. He actually had another whole body in there, we
Right.
cut that right out.
right,
And we said, you know, and I brought it up, we had one person in that role for many years, whether it was union or non-union, that's another whole story. And that one person did it for all those years, so if we have the proper person in there doing the job, we should be able to do so. Now, I don't know when that person used to be in that position, if they went to Department of Labor or training and did any of that, or if that was a town manager aspect, because going back to Wolfgang Bauer, I know he used to be the HR Monty Hall office up there, so,
Different, it's different.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think we agree with you as more than, anything. I mean, I've always been a proponent of HR, because I've been here where the council had to try to make decisions when the town manager brings us an employee matter. And all of a sudden, we're the bad guys, because we didn't make that decision, or we talked about it, but we gave the guidance to the town manager. Now we're the bad guys. Well, I don't think we should be in the HR business up here as council members, because I don't work with those individuals on a daily basis. I don't see their behavior on a daily basis. Only what, you know, I'll give you an example. To me, I was told one employee was such a bad employee, but then a new director comes in and says, that's one of my hardest working employees. It's amazing what you hear from different people from different aspects. So, again, as a council person, I don't want to be part of HR. I don't think you should be part of HR. The only thing is you should have somebody you could talk to and go back and forth, and I think every department head should have somebody they should be able to go and talk to and get the laws and get those rectified, because as a department head, they're dealing with the matter, and they might like that person, they may dislike that person. Now you got a totally different attitude. If you have two people doing the same exact thing, you might not like that person, so I'm gonna hold that guy more accountable than this guy, and you're gonna have issues. And that's happened. So I believe in wholeheartedly, we need an HR person full-time. One, I don't think we need two, I don't think we need three, I think we need one. And that's just my opinion again.
So,
I'm just gonna go with the same ones I went with last time.
Okay.
Um, No raise for the library. No offense, but we haven't even decided on contracts for anyone else yet. I think we could cut some of the town council contribution piece, as minimal as it may be.
what's the town
Yeah.
council
The,
contribution?
our contribution to nonprofits, not the whole
Oh,
thing,
oh,
but
oh.
I think we could, I mean, obviously you don't want to, but we're either gonna hand in the same budget, or we're gonna make some cuts.
What was that,
So-
1,200?
no, it's 10,000, isn't it?
Is it that much?
I think it's 10.
10 to
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
then
12.
two reds, we
Yeah.
reclassified a couple $1,000s. And I actually wouldn't disagree with that. If we don't have money, we shouldn't be giving money away, and I know that some of those entities depend on us, but if we give them enough heads up, I'm not so sure we should be in the business of contributing, so.
And I also went big as a suggestion, which, just a thought, what would it cost to privatize Parks and Rec? Rough idea. Yeah, do you know offhand? And part of it, the reason I'm saying is, you know, I'm thinking of my ward and Ward 4. I drive by it every day and I make excuses every day. How we have 120 hours per week for 3 individuals to work. And since April 1st, it's been 10 weeks, and it would most likely take one of the 3 or one person to come down and spend a half an hour of the 1,200 hours and put up 2 basketball nets in Crompton Playground. And that should not have that shouldn't come from a councilman, but when constituents call me and I make excuses and make excuses, and I shouldn't, and that shouldn't come from you as a department head. That should be on a list, on a schedule. Flat top park. The parking lot, I don't think anybody's ever cleaned it. I mean, that should be on a schedule to do. And it seems to me, and that we're taking care of McCarthy Field, that's the primary. If we're gonna hire a grounds crew for McCarthy Field, then that's what we should do. Because there's been issues in Natick, there's issues at Flat Top, there's issues in Crompton. So I'm looking at 120 hours a week to do what? Mega picks up our trash. So it's basically to cut grass. And I'm not saying they're not doing a good job. But I think when you're looking at essentials and you're looking at efficiency, I don't know why things aren't being done that should just take a little bit of time to do. We shouldn't be paying people to fix mounds during a baseball game or to watch a baseball game. I think it doesn't happen anywhere else, believe me.
And it's not happening here as much as it used to. I can assure you that. Councilman, one thing I found is that we do spend an enormous amount of time at McCarthy Field, Ray Silver Field, and not as much time everywhere else. And getting back to...
Are we recouping the money for the rentals?
We are now. Now, if a tournament comes into town now and they request having someone there from the town to tend to their every need, we put a price on that now, and they have to pay. They have to pay what that employee cost the town. They have to write a check when they book the field. So we started doing that now. So if you see a person at a game during a tournament, that person is being paid for by the person sponsoring the tournament. We just started doing that this year.
That includes everything.
That includes everything, yes.
The pension,
Yes.
FICA, all
We
that.
went to personnel and I said, what does it cost for this employee on overtime, period? And that's what we did. They will pay that hourly rate. So we are doing that now. Back to a comment that Council President Goslin said, yeah, it's very tough to be efficient here. When I came here, that department was going through an enormous amount of overtime every year. We scaled that back, along with Public Works, enormous amount of overtime. So we are trying to run it more efficiently. I can tell you last year the line item in Public Works for overtime was over by $20,000. It's going to be under this year, coming into the end of this budget. So we are starting there. Every day when we get to work, before you can pick up a pen and schedule a day in Public Works, we're out 9 people. 3 on injury, 3 bid out of the department. They get to bid out of the department, and we have to hold their job while they're holding jobs somewhere else. And then, of course, we can't hire without a CDL. There's 3 openings. We're having a hard time hiring somebody without a CDL. 2 of those employees are in Parks and Recreation. Now, if they're entitled to their time off, they have vacation time, sick time. They take a day off, we don't send anyone else over there. We don't have anyone to send over there. What happens? Overtime. So yeah, it's you're constantly chasing your tail here. Another thing that the contract prohibits us from doing, if we have a project to do on a field somewhere, I'm not allowed to take Public Works workers and go over and help out with that project. That's a no-no. Can't work in someone else's department, you'll get a grievance for it. You know, these are the things we're up against. You know, we are in contract negotiations. You know, we don't want to talk about that too much, but you know, this is what we're up against. Parks and Rec's a problem. Since we cut the overtime, yeah, not as much is getting done over there now, for some reason. Haven't been able to put my finger on it yet, but we're trying. But as far as privatizing it, I couldn't tell you what it would cost to privatize it, not off the top of my head, I couldn't.
Well, I can tell you this, you can't privatize it by July 1st.
No.
No, I'm just saying for the future though. You know, I mean, I think, obviously we have to think of the now, but at some point we have to start thinking beyond.
Well, one thing in that vein may be worth considering, and again, I believe the contract has a privatization clause in it, or anti-privatization clause in it. But, you know, in other communities, in many communities, leagues maintain fields that they use all the time. They're leased to the league for $1 a year or some minimal fee, and they take care of the inner
That worked
maintenance.
well, huh? That worked well, huh?
Well,
It should.
It does work well in other
That's right.
communities.
No, but I'm just saying.
You know, I can give you a, for instance, here, we had a game in the afternoon, we had no one in Parks Recreation. One was out injured, one was on vacation, and the other one, I think, was out sick. I sent one of my management people over to just throw out 3 bases and leave a rake for the coach. Bang, grievance. The thing I'm finding in this community, I know I'm from outside this community, but there's no teamwork here.
What-
Nobody
wait,
wants to work
What are
together.
you supposed to do if nobody's there? How can there be a grievance if there's nobody?
There was a grievance. There was a grievance. You know, I think they felt I should have pulled somebody out of City Hall to go do it. I don't know, but that was very simple. We threw out 3 bases and left a rake for the coach. Grievance. There's just no teamwork in this community. And it's sad. It's a sad thing.
That was a big one, Jay.
Well, but, you know, I think it is something that needs
No,
to
it
be
needs
looked
to be
at,
addressed,
but it's
there's
not
no
gonna,
question.
it's not gonna be done by July 1st.
No,
Well-
the question is, I mean, you were part of a Parks and Rec department in Coventry. How many people were in that department when you worked?
More than what we have here.
Over
But-
12, about 12 to 15, correct?
No, there was 6. Six,
Including
six-
department, wait a
six
minute.
on maintenance.
You're talking about secretaries and everything
No,
else?
6 in maintenance,
Yeah.
but they also took care of 5 times the amount of property, whether it's building or fields. And I'm not gonna, it's not fair to compare.
No,
And I don't wanna compare, that's not right. But I think there's an issue here where we have 120 man-hours a week and we're cutting fields. And it doesn't seem like there's room for little things that need to get done. Whether they're not being done or it needs to be managed differently, I don't know. But I'd like to, at some point, if you could get that number,
Yeah.
based on how many fields we have.
Just let me say, we do only have 3 people in Parks and Rec, usually 1, but for the summer, we have 3. Again, they go on vacation, they get sick. So it is a lot to do for 3 people, I'll say that. If we had the ability, when I have my Department of Public Works at full strength, to send a few guys down, hey, go throw some, Councilman Lachati called, go throw some baskets on there for them. I don't have that ability to do that without getting a grievance. I just don't have that ability. It's crazy. It would work so much better if we were able to do that. There are things we can help out with. We're just not allowed to do that for some reason, so. But yes, this Department of Public Works, it's only 3 people. And they do have a lot of work to do, and they do a good job at what they do. Could it be better? Absolutely, it could be better. But we need to work more as a team here, too, so.
Does anybody else have anything?
Well, I think I said it best about, I mean, I thought about the floater, but I think efficiency with the floater needs to be addressed before before we even consider the position. And I think I said it, that when the council brought that floater in, it was to cover the single-person departments, one being the tax assessor, one being the building officials. So that way they're not closed when they go to lunch or whatever. Because, again, if the department head or somebody else is doing the work there, we end up in hot water every single time. And this was previous to this individual that's in there now. But, you know, we want to make sure that when people walk in the front hall or a real estate agent comes in, that office is open. And that person has the right. There's only one person in that office beside, and Tony, 2 really, but 1 town employee And they have the right to go to lunch, they have the right to take vacation. The floater needs to be utilized for that. The same thing with building officials' office. There should not be a close, be back this, you know, I go back to, I call it Burrville, because that's the last time I saw that, close, be back at 2. And that was on a storefront in Burrville. That's, when I walked in here one day and I see close, be back at such and such an hour, and people come in here, that's why we put that floater in place. So I kind of renege on my floater position. I want to say that we need to utilize it better. We do need it, because we have many offices with one person in it. And when there, and again, no offense to finance, but if there's 5 or 6 people down there and a resident comes down there, they can answer questions. If the tax assessor or the building official's office closed, there's no, the door can't answer a question. And that's why I still say we need to utilize that floater. They should not be going to lunch together. One of those offices should always be open. That way, but that's just department head's responsibility and the town manager. So I'll renege on the floater
Well, I
position.
know David helped a little bit. That used to be an issue with DPW, right, where the breaks would be at the same time. At least now they're kind of staggered, so it's always open.
It was. We always have the desk covered now, and the yard stays open all the time, so they've been very cooperative with that.
It works, because people try to go on their lunch break, and it's not if there's an hour and they can't go down there, so.
And the only
For
other
any
one,
department, not just there, but.
and the only other one that I had in here, and it's only part-time because half of it's at the Civic Center, was the Parks and Rec Secretary position, because we went years without it, and all of a sudden, we now have it. So that's my only 2 things that I had as far as personnel. But I renege on the floater. I just think it needs to be better utilized.
The only things I had were we had a couple of positions that were unfilled, that wouldn't be eliminating jobs. I know the DPW, there was how many, like 2 or 3, where we wouldn't be taking anybody's, specific job. Those are the only places that I saw. I'm not in favor of cutting anybody's job at this point, but,
And if you really wanted to get into it, I had marked, plain and simple, $500,000 was between OPEB and capital. Those are my 2 cuts, because,
So,
what do you do?
so I had, based on some of the manager's recommendations, based on conversations we had, the personnel training, 5,000. I don't think we would cut all of OPEB, but if we cut 100,000, the workers' comp's giving us back 50,000, right? That was over budget, is that correct? If we cut the council contribution of 10,000, I had the floater in there for 34,000. So if we took the floater out, we're looking at about 165,000
It's actually split, that floater.
split, okay?
So
But
it's
let's say we
double
took
that.
the floater out,
Yeah, that's double that.
you'd be around 165. My thing is, I want to retain our services for the town. Even as a taxpayer, I want my services. I want to make sure that our people are properly equipped to sit here and start, cutting skag mowers and the camera that we wanted for so long. We have to consider or anticipate the contract negotiations and the cost of that. I feel like, cut 200,000 and drop it to 1.5% and go back to the people and explain it to them and say, look, this is what you're actually voting on.
because people are like, oh, we're gonna cut the budget, well, I don't want you to touch the police and fire. Well, I don't want to either.
They say that all the time,
But you-
right?
Where are you,
Well,
there's only so
our
much
hands are
room,
tied.
there's only so much room to cut, in a budget. So when you vote a budget down, you're forced to make difficult decisions. And there's a lot of things that we cannot touch, that, we have no ability to touch. So
Right.
we don't have
Right.
as much wiggle room as people think with a $100 million budget.
And I just want to make something clear, the healthcare costs going up 900,000. Don't think the town employees don't see an increase because they're paying a percentage of their healthcare. So they are seeing the increase also. It's not a flat rate. I want to make that clear. A lot of people thought that town employees still pay a flat rate. It's not. It's based on percentage. Am I correct?
Depending on what product they have.
Right, depends
Yes.
upon what union it
Correct.
is, what they
Correct.
have. There are maximum levels for municipal. There are none for, I believe, police and fire for the Health Made Coast to Coast. That is the most expensive plan. Police and fire, I believe, pay 20%, I could be wrong, of the premium cost. And this bowl pays, if you have Health Made Coast to Coast, they pay an amount, but there is a cap based upon the salary of the employee. There is no health care copay for HSAs.
and again, you know, when police, fire, and municipals are paying a percentage, when the healthcare goes up, and that was one thing the council did years ago in the last couple of contract negotiations, was get it to a percentage. That way there, we didn't have to come back and fight about every increase and every, because I know the first couple of contracts were, oh, we gotta pay more into healthcare. And I'll give Councilman Kelsey some of the credit on this, and was a percentage would be best, because that way there, when it goes up for everybody, our side and their side. And so I just wanna make it clear too, like, that 900,000, the town employees are seeing some of that and taking that on for a burden also. It's, you know, I go back to what I said, I mean, we could sit here and we can cut $10,000 out of a budget. You know what that counts for your tax dollars? Less than a tenth of a penny. You know, so unless you're gonna cut 1.7 and make a difference, 10,000 isn't gonna make a difference in my eyes. I think you get the same vote out there. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I think I said it publicly, start cutting all the positions. The people that were actually for the budget probably go against the budget, so you're gonna be voting it down again. So
Back for a third time.
you better make sure that this is a budget that you wanna propose all the way around to the
Right.
taxpayer and to, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, people don't realize, employees are taxpayers also.
You're right, if you cut 2 police officers, 2 firefighters, 3 DPW, your budget's gonna get voted down again, and then you're gonna come back for a third time, you know?
Well, and there are minimum manning.
I
That
was
you
just
have to-
throwing, I was
yes.
just
Yep.
throwing a number out there.
Yeah, if you cut police and fire, okay, you're gonna cut it here, but you also remember one thing, if there's somebody in that position, you're paying their unemployment, so you're not saving money. That unemployment savings, you gotta take that. Then,
Pay
you gotta also
overtime.
increase your overtime, because the minimum manning is
So
gonna
you're not
affect
saving
that.
money.
So you're not ultimately saving money, you're paying for however many weeks they're unemployed, plus whatever, so, I mean,
Or if you get to a point where we get to the end of the year and you have, and I know that this is a possibility, that you have some police officers and firefighters that decide to retire, and then you have, between the two of them, you have like 16 open positions. I mean, then what do you do? You're paying overtime for those, and it takes over a year to get a new police, I don't know how long the process is for firefighters, but what's the time frame to get, I mean, it's a while before you fill those positions. So you're not really saving money, you're cutting money and you're paying the same money anyway, but then you have less experienced people in those positions. So you're not gaining anything from it. There's a price to pay for everything that you cut in the budget.
There is a cost-benefit analysis that you need to do, that's right. Ernie, you talk about 2 positions that are open, I believe.
Right now, there are 3 laborers' positions open in Public Works Highway. There is a position in the tax collector's office, a clerk's position that is vacant, that is temporarily being filled by the floater position. So there are, I believe, 4 municipal positions.
But they've been accounted for in the budget,
Yes,
as though they were filled.
yes.
I mean, rather than totally eliminate them, I mean, it's like to freeze hiring for a certain period of time. I mean, I don't know what the number would
you'd
be.
have to freeze it for a full year, because
Okay,
if
I understand that.
you put it out of the budget.
That's not
you
forever,
freeze-
though, I mean, it's for a year.
But again, you'd have to freeze it for a year.
I understand. Thoughts on that?
Again, you'd have to look at a contract to see if a budgeted position is in place. Then I believe it has to be filled on the municipal side. The police and fire have their minimum manning requirements, so if there's a vacant position, you know, there would be a request to fill that at the earliest opportunity. For police and fire, there are timeframes, but the reality is they have to go to academies, both police and fire, go through that program, pass the program, and then have a field training locally here. So that is a long period of time. And what we try to do is keep firefighters and officers going to these academies, because we know we have vacancies and we know we have retirements. So to have a budgeted position and not fill it or to drag it could be problematic under the current situation we have.
What are your suggestions, Sonny, from the budget then?
Oh, yeah, I think that I broke them down into two. And again, non-personnel. The $5,000 that was the new line item in the training, in the personnel human resource budget. Again, going into the budget, personally, I felt that training needed to be improved and increased. But that's, with the current situation in the personnel area, that would not be implemented, so that certainly can be reduced. And again, when I looked at this, I tried to have a threshold of at least $10,000 and actually higher. Smaller amounts was just not really worth it. The 5,000, and there's another one just because that was a new line item. OPEB. If the healthcare is fully funded and gets to the rates where we need to be, and if we have a decent year, good year, the budgeted amount for healthcare will go into an internal service fund for active employees, and for those retirees, it would go into the OPEB trust fund, as I believe. So if we have a budgeted appropriately, have a good year, any savings there would go into these internal service funds of the OPEB trust. That's what I believe for the OPEB trust.
Is that a realistic number?
This?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're
This
comfortable?
is what was given to us by our healthcare consultant. Traditionally, the town doesn't use that number. It uses a number that the town believes it can afford. And as a result, there are times when we're going to expend that number. It goes into internal service funds, and if it's not enough, that internal service fund will have a deficit. I believe there's a slight deficit in the town's internal service fund for healthcare, a small one. But again, these rates should cover what's coming up. And again, you never know because we have stop-loss insurance for big claims. But any given time, you could have a number of big claims that go up to the maximum limit. So these rates will give us the opportunity to budget accordingly. And if we have good years, those savings don't go to the general fund. They go back into the health care service fund. And again, if it can go into the OPEB trust fund, that will build that up. That will help build up in the future. So again, keeping the insurance rates is important. And again, if we can do that and do it reoccurringly, an OPEB contribution certainly needs to be made, but when you look at it, it would not be as critical as if we were using a arbitrary smaller amount just to fit into the budget. So hopefully the rates will help increase the internal trust fund and the healthcare trust fund, internal service fund. So the OPEB is not as critical. So I recommended a reduction of $100,000. And again, we also have to understand that police and fire do make a contribution of their salaries into that account. And, the town needs to make a contribution as well. So that's why the recommendation was to reduce it by $150,000. Workers' comp, the actual bill came in and it's about $50,000, maybe a little bit higher.
Are you recommending 100,000 or 150,000?
Yeah,
A reduction of $100,000.
Reduction of 100.
150.
Right,
150,
Yes.
okay.
I'm sorry, the reduction is 100,000.
Yep.
Workers' comp, 100,000. And if we go forward, the fire department, they had a fairly large increase in their budget for a number of reasons. But training was one that was important to me for training purposes, but, they still have, for training and if they manage their budget well, they have opportunities for training above and beyond the required training. That would mitigate that. Again, it was important that, for the next time the chief's position becomes vacant, it would be nice to have internal candidates who could meet the qualifications of chief. And I believe there may be one, but maybe one close to battalion chief, but again, that's sort of what was in my mind, but again, the 35,000 would be sufficient. Going into DPW overtime, just $10,000. I agree with efficiencies, and if we can be more efficient during the regular work week, then, more work can be done and have a less reliance upon scheduled overtime. That is not good to have. And,
Can you go back quick
mhm,
on the workman's comp?
right.
You have here 50, I think you said 100.
Yeah.
You
Oh, no,
just
I'm
mentioned-
sorry, it was,
50,
the
it is
OPEB
50.
was, it should be 100.
Yeah.
Workers' comp should be 50,000
All right.
reduction. The
Thank you.
training for fire, 15,000. Going, then 10,000 in public works overtime. Scooting on down, then we go into capital. Okay, that's one of the areas you look to look at and see if something can be deferred or funded through a different source. I have the capital list for everything if the council wants copies of that. Looking through it, the $8,500 for the computer replacement for the police department, they want to get a heads up on, the old software operating systems, I believe, I forget where they are, 2007, they're going to be non-supported in January 1st or February 1st of 2000, and we have $50,000 budgeted in the capital for that. And, the colonel wanted to get a sort of a head start on that. And I can attest to that because Friday I'm working on this and my computer crashed. It took a while for RCC, and thankfully they got it back up working now, but it's a 2010, and that needs to be replaced. And I think they were able to save and transfer things, so in case it does go out right now. So again, our computer systems need to be replaced.
So that doesn't eliminate the budget to replace computers, it just reduces it, is that
So
what you're
it
saying?
reduces the amount that the colonel wanted for the police. We still have $50,000
Okay,
replacement in the capital.
okay.
And again, with the police, and this is something I will say that is, first when I saw it, I really didn't like it. But it does have merit, and it is a good practice to have when municipal court fines are in a restricted account. And those fines can be used with the municipal court judge's approval for various items for the police department where they can purchase things, radars, different things, cars, partial funding of cars. So I think that's good. And also the private detail funds, the administrative fees go into that, and that can be utilized by the police as well. And that helps then fund their needs as opposed to a capital process.
So with everything else that comes in from those, will we be able to generate that $8,500?
In my opinion, yes, they would have the ability to use that for that purpose if they so choose. And
It's not another need that comes up, I mean, there's
right.
always a
so
possibility.
it's a
Right.
balancing act.
Right,
The fire, I asked the fire chief, okay, you have 4 or 5 capital items, which is your most important, rank them. And he indicated that the microfiber line, going to, I have it written down, was the least important of the important items. The other items were needed for the operations, and then the compressors were needed for the rescues. Those are the automatic chest compressors, because my understanding, new protocols that are in place or are going to be in place require certain aspects where you have to have a half an hour of compression before you transport. And that can be very difficult. These would be on each of the two rescues that are on every day. So that would be something important. Hose is a tool that is needed, replacement. So his recommendation was if I had to remove one, the $17,000 for the microwave link to Factory Street, and that could be looked to, again, reconsider next year.
Chief, the microwave link is like a backup at some point, some type.
So yeah,
Go ahead.
that's, so the microwave link is,
form of communication between the Factory Street Tower that receives all of our radio communications and data input. And we have a cable that goes from the Factory Street Tower to our communication, and the police also. So this would affect both police and fire. It's just, it's in communication, so our communication guys were leading that. But right now, everything's done through that cable. The microwave link would eliminate that cable, and it's a vulnerability in lightning storms. That's what happened this past summer. We ended up having like almost $17,000 worth of damage to a capacitor and some other components in our dispatch room. So that's what that is about. It is important. It's something we need to do. But if I need hose, and so that's why we chose that.
Chief, would it be possible, I think I've asked this a few years ago, I know the rescue fund that's set up
Yes.
with, I understand the rest.
It's an apparatus
the apparatus
replacement. Yep.
are very expensive, I understand that.
Yes.
But if needed, would you be able to take $17,000 out of that fund? Not on a regular basis.
No, I understand
but
that.
I'm thinking
and,
if it's an emergency, there is money there. Is that an option, or is that?
It's not. Although that fund is good right now, in 3 to 4 years, we're going to be cutting it very close. If our anticipated revenues stay steady, well, hopefully they'll increase, but as long as they stay steady, in 3 years, we're going to run it, we'll be getting very close to a wire.
And I think that on that replacement schedule, I think a ladder truck is in the offing or for
it is.
consideration. And I will tell you, that is a remarkable funding source, taking a percentage of that.
I agree. I agree.
Many communities don't do that, and as a result, it's either capital or nothing. So this community has taken a step, and I know Chief Barris was very proud of that, and other chiefs asked him about that. And that is a very, very good program to have to help fund these equipment. And when you fund them through lease purchase, then that's.
Well, that stops. There's one thing that was brought to me. I came to the pension board meeting last night, and I stuck around with Mr. Hero, and that prevents that fund. Think about it. If the town had to raise taxes for a fire truck for 1 year, but that truck's going to be good for 10 years, the taxpayers are footing. It's not like they reduce the taxes the following year to wipe out that truck fee. The taxpayers are being charged yearly, so that fund's perfect for that. Also, one thing Chief Barris brought to us, and Jay, you're right, 100%, was that not only did he ask, and the council I think passed it, a resolution that he's able to use for other supplies and whatever for the fire department in case there was at one time that was pretty built up. And I gotta say, we have a pretty good fleet right now. Probably, if you look at the fleets from 2006 till now, it's remarkable. We were driving around with a 72 truck till about 5 years ago, and the thing caught on fire, and I said, you guys should have let it burn, but they put it out. They just, part of their mentality, putting fire out, I guess. But again, if you could swing it, that would help out a little bit, but again, I understand exactly what you're saying.
And I'm not saying to borrow it because it's never going to go back. I know that. It's more of, it's $17,000 if you desperately need it.
Yep.
There's money there to take it from, which may go back, may not, I don't know. Most likely not.
Okay.
But again, it's not like you're starting at zero.
Okay. So there is money in that account, okay, right now, and that there's a couple $100,000 in that account right now, so they could use for some things.
If you felt the need to absolutely take care of that microwave link, you could, if you.
Yes.
But you'd rather wait and reconsider next
But
year if possible.
in 3 years, and
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
saying, we
Okay.
might be coming before you looking for almost $100,000 to maintain the
Fair enough.
apparatus. We have
Yep.
a ladder truck that is 23 years old. It needs to be replaced. It's going to take us over a year just to get the truck built to replace it. And, we're looking at trying to stretch out the terms of that loan from what was originally planned for 9 years. into closer to 12 to 15 years, which is a long time to pay for a truck,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So, but
While
they
we're
do.
on restricted funds or whatever, Chief, not put you on the spot, you have an eBay account and also refresh my memory, if you happen to make a bust and there's cash or whatever, does that go into some sort of fund?
I believe the eBay account left a few years ago.
They were able to sell this stuff online.
I do believe the eBay account left when Captain Mark Bennett left. He was the administrator of that. But drug forfeitures, we do get. Obviously, we don't rely on them. They're a luxury when we get them, and they usually take about a year to process at minimum. So we do have some funds. I don't recall the numbers offhand, but we do have a few projects in the works that we'd like to utilize that money over the next couple of years. But there is emergency money if we need it for drug-related investigations and law enforcement purposes.
Thank you.
And then just continuing on with the general reduction, non-personnel in capital, and these basically, in my mind, went together. The deep tracker camera that can go through the drainage lines and the rooter delivery, which is the ability to clear the line with roots with blades. And currently, when a situation calls for that need, the highway department will call wastewater, can we use your jet truck? You know, the camera, and they can flush it. And, you know, they work very well together now.
I don't want to stop you there, but I know specifically with the Shipyard project, there was multiple times where you were not able to get it, right? I mean, the camera, I mean, I know there's more times than that, but as far as that camera, there was times where you weren't able to get it for a day or two, correct?
In the past, in the past, I guess, the cooperation between the two departments wasn't as strong as it is now, but we haven't had a problem unless it's broken down or they're using it. But I just used it last week on a job. They came out, camera the line for us. So we can get by that way. Yes, it has.
So again, as we know, the original purpose was to be able to have that ability to address issues immediately as they arise. But again, if we need to rely upon the wastewater treatment facility, you know, that is an option. And then the mower that was discussed about, the need, I know that was a discussion that we had. And when these total up, it's $196,935. And again, that's what my recommendation would be based upon the rationales that I have. Not knowing what and if, you know, a direction may be from the council, had to look at other areas. And when you look at our budget, when you take away the fixed costs, it becomes personnel and benefits. And I think the number, I have the number for all salaries and wages, but you know, you have to, if you have to go further than the 196.
So Ernie, let me
Right.
ask you, I don't want to cut you off. I know you said at the last council meeting there's somewhat possibly a little bit of a surplus this year.
Right.
Can you share the list of where that surplus may be? Because we might be charging the same from last year, but could that be another surplus for next year?
I assume that you
Yeah.
actually factored that in when you originally gave us your budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I don't have like an up-to-date report on where we ended up. I certainly can have that printed up and see, you know, where those differences are for the entire, you know, the entire town budget, you know, which is 40 million, you know, from the town.
Can I ask you
that
a
is good
personnel,
point.
personnel question?
Yes.
Which hasn't come up. And again, it's just a question. In our animal shelter, last I knew, we had both ACOs out. And one came back? Well, someone from DPW left to go to be the ACO, and they were the one ACO for I don't know how many months. So I guess, well, I didn't know that.
I just
but
found
but
out
if
last
one
week that
came
one
back,
came back.
Right.
and we've been dealing with just one, can we still utilize one person and that member from DPW come back to DPW? Because they're
Right.
obviously shorthanded right now, as you're saying. And that leads to my next question. Do we need, and I don't know, but do we need 2 ACOs?
Well, to answer your first question, I would have to go back and review the municipal contract to see what, what leeway there is once a position's being filled temporarily for a vacant position. So I have to look at that to see if that is a possibility. When there was one, then you had the facility open 5 days rather than 7, which is fine. And then the reoccurring overtime, those 2 days, that the facility would be closed, as well as, the overtime generated with holidays and things of that nature. So, that is something that can be looked at. As far as the necessity for 2, that is a question. I know in the past the town has operated with 1 and 1 or 2 part-time positions. And, I've had discussions with, the colonel about that, as well as looking at other models of other communities. How do they do it, At this point, based upon the discussions, it seems appropriate to keep the 2 positions at the present time. But that's something that could be reviewed going forward, based upon, the necessity. I mean, sometimes it's very busy, sometimes it's not. It depends on how many guests they have or how many, calls come out for the enforcement end, But it is busy, can be busy, or it can be very quiet. You never know. I mean, somebody could have a hoarding situation and it's all hands on deck, and you have to place them with other entities. But we do have volunteers to help, which is very good, but, when volunteers are present, we have to have a full-time city and town employee there as well. But it is something to look at going forward, but that's not what was contemplated in the budget or when we talked about that, because that question did come up in my conversation with the colonel.
All right, thanks.
So it seems to me we have, the non-personnel reductions on the table at $257,000. If we
196.
cut how much is it?
196.
196,
Oh,
I
sorry.
apologize.
Oh,
I'm looking at this number right here, it says non-personnel reductions,
Yeah,
257.5,
we checked it out.
right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Let me make sure.
it came up with 2.
This is his number.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know, I wrote it up, but I could be, I'll just double check, so make sure. Okay, 5,000, 100,000. Yeah, it's gonna be the larger number. Yeah, it came up to the 190, 196.
186.
196.
Yeah,
196.
they inverted them, I think.
And then if we added in, we took away contributions from the council, it's another 10, 206,000. And then from there, it seems like anything viable would have to come from employees, which would be possibly up to another 196,000 if this is accurate.
laptop. Okay. Yeah, that is, I'm getting the 257 number.
So you went 196, 257? Say what? What did you just add up?
Came up with the non-personnel. Let's try it again.
You're adding up non-personnel rate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so it was,
Say that one down. Because it came up two different numbers.
I know, that's fine. I'm gonna double check. Yeah. That's the 257 number.
yeah, because.
257 is a
That is
non-personnel.
So 257, so we're actually
Correct, yeah.
possibly looking at, again, with the taking away of the contribution, 267.5, and that would leave 196,000 in personnel reductions on the table if we chose to go that route.
I'm still a little leaning on the contributions.
Go ahead. Leave something in there.
Again, if we're scraping and
If
considering.
you're gonna cut it, just, all I'm gonna say is send a letter to, if we're gonna cut it down to zero, send a letter right now to the food cupboard and the Veterans Council and let them know, so they can start raising money. Because the food cupboard's gotten over $6,000 a year from us around the holidays, which has fed a lot of families in this town. We've got them through the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I say just,
I'm personally
And the
not
Veterans
for
Council
cutting the
runs,
deduction,
wait a
to be
minute, and
honest.
the Veterans Council runs two ceremonies down there, and maintain that park, and monuments and whatever else. So, all I'm saying is, let them know, don't let them be blindsided, let them know now.
I say just leave that 10 in there, and, I mean, what is
Well,
that
is
gonna?
it 10?
It's 10,000.
Yes.
No, there's 10,000 in there. What do we give to the food cupboard and what do we give
You
to?
know, the food
again,
cupboard about 16, just under 7,000 last year, right? And
6,600, I think it was.
So my point is, again, I don't believe we should be in the business of entertaining other 501c3s. If that's what it is, let's make it clear that's what it is. And not have people asking for 500 here, 300 here, 1,000 here. If that's what our intent is, let's make it clear. That's what it's going for.
Because in the new budget, I think we have an advertising.
Correct, we have
Right.
the
Split it up.
ability, yeah, that's right, there's an ability to actually do things like ads and support,
like the $100 things for the books
Correct.
and things like that. yeah.
correct.
I'm not saying don't support. I'm saying
No, I know what you're
it's
saying.
quite a bit of money that we are supporting.
So maybe cut the contributions in half. You're saying don't do it at all.
Well, I would say either don't do it at all, or, because, yeah, I don't have real strong feelings one way or another. Again, I struggle with entertaining requests from numerous organizations, which will only grow. If we intend to support the food cupboard and the veterans, let's say that, put
Be
that in there,
specific about it.
and then that's it. I'm okay with that. But having to say, ooh, you're more worthy than this one or that one, I don't think we should be in that business.
What's the council's?
So if 10,000 is what we've given to those two organizations?
No, it's about between both 15, the Veterans Council, I could say 15, food covers between 6 and 7, so figure 7,500.
And I don't think we give enough to the veterans, but again, with what you just said, with more and more groups coming forward, it's going to be, well, how come I don't get 15? How come one gets 6? Why can't, my organization is just as valuable, we help as just as many people.
Veterans turned down more, remember last year?
But I'm just saying that it's us playing God here of who we're giving the money to, and how much.
Listen, if you wanna cut it, I'll cut it, I'll agree with you, I just say we need to let both organizations know now, so they can find other ways of trying to, figure it out. In other words, whether or not they're gonna have steak fries down there, or what they're gonna do over there, you know, are they gonna apply for grants through the state? You know, we just gotta figure out, I just don't wanna be blindsided come November and say no. So if we're gonna cut it, and the budget passes, we need to let them know immediately, saying, because we've already got the request, I think, from the Veterans Council, looking for $1,500 for next year. We just need to let them know that, sorry, it's been cut at this time.
Well, the other tact you can take, if they are already planning on it for this year, is that we'll give to those two organizations, but you know what, we're really gonna consider that going forward. Again, I'm not looking, I think they're both worthy organizations, but there are a lot of worthy organizations, and I'm sure, you know, I wasn't here for the whole time, so I'm not sure exactly where the request came.
We've
but-
actually increased that line, it used to be about 7,500, we
Yeah.
moved it up to 10,000.
Yeah, but in the last year, there's been, I don't remember the first year we were on, it's been the last 2 years where we've had people coming up
And
and
that's
way
only
more,
gonna-
way
It's,
more.
it's only going to grow.
That's correct.
And,
As long-
and
as soon
10
as the
won't be,
word's out.
10 won't be enough. So at some point, we have to draw the line and say, this is what we have, this is what we have for you,
And
and
you
for
make,
you,
you
and
make a
for you.
valid point, like how do we determine who's the more worthy or less worthy, you know what I mean? It's really is a difficult decision.
Again, if those two organizations specifically have relied on us for a number of years, maybe we need to send a message that maybe it's not in perpetuity that we can do that we have to consider that given the tough times, but, yeah, I'm not hell-bent on cutting their funding this year, but I don't think we should be entertaining dozens of requests for money from 501c3s. If you're gonna do that, and I said that early on, you need to have financials from them, you have to know what their mission is, you have to know what their board of directors, who makes it up, where the funding goes, that kind of stuff. If it's going to feed families, that's a great cause. If it's going to celebrate and honor our veterans, that's a great cause.
They're all great causes to
I agree.
To
the
each individual
organization,
group.
of course
Right,
it is.
that's right.
And they should be causes for us, but I think it's, when you
I
put the
say-
money into
I
perspective.
say we leave it in for this year's budget, but that's my opinion.
So I don't have a problem with that, if we agree that that's it, we're not gonna entertain any others, and then have to look at the whole thing. And if that's the case and we can cut it to 7,500, we should.
Cut it to 7,500.
Okay.
Anything else? Anything from the department heads? I know you shared your.
They're keeping their heads down, so, yeah.
You don't have a lot of things,
I'm safe.
Yeah.
you're not gonna come forward with some things to get rid of now?
So do we have agreement that two,
It's
257.5
257.5.
should
Could
be
you-
cut?
Could there be a motion and second, and I can go through this, so we have a formal vote, because I know Kristen's probably home looking, saying, you know, we need a vote for these.
So I would make a motion that we cut the non-personnel reductions that were provided that we just talked about in the amount of $257,500 from the budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Any other cuts or ideas?
That leaves the personnel issue. We've talked about the floater. I agree with you, the floater needs to be used properly. We shouldn't have departments closed when people come in to do their business, that we're not providing the service we need to provide. But that's not a budget issue, that's a
Efficiency.
efficiency management issue. I still would go back to, you have a couple of other positions there, Ernie. Tell me about the impact of those, and/or Dave. What benefit, I mean, they're open positions. If they don't get filled, we're not gonna spend the money anyway.
For the three laborers, or?
You have eliminated two positions there.
Right. Again, if we had to go further and had to make further reductions, right now there are 6 drivers and a total of 11 laborers. And currently, a driver can assist a laborer, but not do the work of a laborer. They can help, but not do the work of labor. Currently, all laborers have CDL licenses, and currently, all laborers are required to have that. So when you look at flexibility, if you had less, if you had to cut the budget, which you had to go down the personnel route, if you reduce it by two drivers, laborers can also drive. So they can be paid out of class a day when they're driving, and they provide more flexibility to do, physical work. So the laborers give you the bigger, so to say, bang for the buck than a driver who drives and assists. That's the rationale for that recommendation. And again, since there are vacancies, none of these recommendations would have required, someone to be out of a job. That's the reason.
And does that happen now, David? That people actually, the laborers do drive when necessary and get paid the
Yes,
higher rate?
you pay them out of class when they
Correct.
drive, yes.
Yeah.
Steve, let me ask you a question. How's your department running with these positions not being filled right now?
It's a challenge every day, and it's a combination of positions not being filled, people out of work, people bidding into other departments. It's the perfect storm over there that makes it. Right now, we're struggling to perform the basic services. Most days, we're picking up yard waste and sweeping streets. That's it. So we're fortunate this week. We got finished with yard waste today. We'll catch up on a bunch of other things the rest of the week. But that's how it is. Again, today we had a good workforce. We had 11 people out on the road today. No one called in. Everybody showed. No one asked for a vacation day. So we've been without at least 2 of those positions since I've been here. Of course, you don't want to see anybody lose a job. You don't want to cut positions, demote people and all that. But on the other hand, we have to get the work done too. So we have to find a way to get that done. So it's a challenge every day.
Anything else? So right now, we've got 257.5.
Correct.
Motion on the floor.
That's already been voted on.
I guess, I do know you're strapped. I know you don't have personnel, so I'm not sure if that's cutting off our nose to spite our face, despite the fact it is difficult to fill those positions. I'm hoping that it gets easier. I'm hoping that there are some, easing of the requirements, but that's not a guarantee, obviously. But in the spirit of understanding that you're short, I guess I wouldn't recommend that we actually do that.
Dave, let me ask you a question. You said people move into other departments. Are we able to hire temporary help?
Yes, if you can find them. I'm having trouble finding summer help right now.
I mean, because sometimes that temporary help becomes a permanent help.
Yes,
You know,
we have a
because that
temporary
decides
person.
to stay in that position or whatever, but,
Yeah,
I mean,
we're doing that in the Civic Center right now. We
I
have a
think when we do
temporary
hire,
person.
it is temporary anyway for the first 6 months.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'm not sure why we haven't.
The problem is trying to hire someone from the outside that has a CDL license. That's the problem right now. You're not getting quality applicants with a CDL.
Can they get a time period in order to get that CDL?
Not according to the union contract, you cannot.
That's a work in progress.
So even though that person may not be a driver, so they might not drive.
That person will not be a driver, it'll be a laborer coming from the street.
Okay, so why would you need a
There's only
CDL?
certain trucks that need the CDL on too.
That's correct.
So
Not
why
all-
would you
no,
need a CDL if
Because it's in
you,
the union
That's
contract.
That's the contract
All
that
right.
was put forward, yes.
so technically you don't need it because you're not gonna be driving. But because the contract says you
Get
need
the
it, you need
job
it.
done, you don't need
Right.
it, but to follow the guidelines and provisions of the contract.
Well, it just seems like the contract is binding us up.
Yeah,
getting-
Ideally, what you want is you want to bring a person in without a CDL license, train that person, give them 6 months to a year to obtain that license.
Correct.
That's the way
Normal.
it's done
Normal.
everywhere else. You
Wouldn't
bring
that
them in.
Wouldn't that benefit everybody?
That would benefit everyone, yes, it would, absolutely.
You probably would have been able to fill those 3 positions by now. Okay.
So with these two positions in here, driver one and driver two, is that going to, what difference is that going to make in your department if these positions stay in or get eliminated?
Normally, it wouldn't make a difference. There is a provision in the contract where you cannot force a driver to labor. So if I had a situation where I was short more people, it's hard for me to take one of those 6, even though, and I have to say, they do cooperate and work and help. I will say that. But they have the choice not to, okay? They have the choice not to according to the contract.
Okay.
So basically, what you're at risk is losing 2 laborers, and at any given time, they could say, not that they always do, yeah, we're not going to go on the back of that yard waste truck for you today. We don't have to. So that's the rationale behind that. That's the only rationale behind that.
So, Dave, if you have your druthers, would you prefer to keep those positions there?
Yes.
Just remember, 2 drivers, you have 6. And you have laborers that don't want to drive come snow time. Good luck. Just saying. I've been around long enough, I've seen it, I know it, and
Right.
you know what? Then you're gonna sit there and say, my roads look like crap, my constituents are calling me, why aren't the streets sanded, why aren't they plowed? And yes, it only snows 4 months a year here, but, or whatever it may be. But again, you look at the hours that they put in
Oh,
during those storms.
absolutely.
And I've suggested, I know I've personally gone down to DPW 1, 2 in the morning and said, hello guys, I'm here with you because I'm out plowing too, but they're out there. And I've gone in and checked on them, especially those big storms when we had a foot and a half, and they're out there plowing 16, 18 hours. You gotta look at, the big picture all the way around.
And we were fortunate this past year in the budget where we really got like a handful of storms. We didn't get hammered,
But
but
it was the timing of the storms. It wasn't, if you look at the timing of the storms, and that's what we can't judge on.
you can't
We look at
predict that.
overtime.
You can't predict that.
Most of our storms are on Sundays or overnight. And, these guys have already put in 8 hours through the day, and then they're coming back in at 9 o'clock at night, working till 6 in the morning, then starting their normal shift at whatever. So, and that's why, that's why we ended up with an assistant director, because at the time, the director was staying here for the entire storm. And putting in an extra 20 hours a week and being worn out and cranky and whatever else it may come with that, and rightfully so. And that's why we brought in the assistant, so we could have somebody who can go to meetings with the town manager and somebody working with the guys on the road and making sure things are getting done. I mean, you know, it's frustrating as a council person sitting up here, knowing the ins and outs and what truly goes on here. And again, it all goes back to efficiency, 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 not so much, I mean, I think everybody tries to give it 100%, they try to do their job, and there's always that 5% that ruin it for everyone.
Well, working together instead of working against each other, I feel like there's too much of that in this town where people are working against each other, you know what I mean? It ends up hurting all of us.
I'm on a baseball board, you know, I've seen it for years, where the board wants to help and do things, and all of a sudden, they're getting scrutinized for trying to help. They're not trying to eliminate, trust me, no baseball league is trying to eliminate any job in this town. They're just trying to make it easier and better for the children and the parents to enjoy baseball or whatever. You know, one of the things is a timer. We have a timer down at River Point. Give the league the key, let them turn the timer on. You know what, let the town employee go do something else, let them cut the grass.
Because it's not a shortage. If there was a shortage of things to do in this town, I could understand, but there's not a shortage of stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's efficiencies. And I just want to make it clear, nobody, I don't think anybody up here wants to take anybody's job. And I don't think volunteers in the community want to take anybody's job. They just want to help out. And I see the mentality is, oh, you're taking away, you're taking away. We're not taking away, we're trying to help. And that's all. It's just, you know, go do something. Like you said, there's always something else on that list to do. I mean, I have people on North Pleasant Street, ever since the construction's going on, they're flooding, they've been flooding over 2 years now. It's all because of debris that's in a brook, that's our brook, because it is our drain that goes behind their property. It's our sewer and our drainage going behind their property. We can't get anybody out there because we don't have the manpower. We don't have people to get over there. You know, you ask for a sign, knock on wood, Dave gets it, they try to get it done. They get it done as fast as possible. A lot of things that people don't realize that are requested on the DPW, on police, on fire, on building, that, you know, that minimum housing, what do you expect to cut? When you cut, and we're trying to beautify this town, let me tell you, by cutting DPW is not gonna beautify this town. By cutting building officials' office isn't gonna beautify this town. It's not gonna make it be any better. Only gonna make it worse. You know, if we have to look at the way bulk pickups picked up, that's a possibility. Yeah, we might not be able to afford it on Saturdays anymore, because that's all overtime. We might have to stay, you know, bring it on Friday or Monday, whatever it may be. But, I mean, we have to go efficiency.
Do you have a savings of what that would be if we kept it on Fridays for like a year? A rough estimate of doing that and cutting out the Saturday? I mean, would we be limiting Saturdays totally? Because I know in the past, the Saturday's been a day where people could drop stuff off. Has that been going as well?
Well, that's in the labor board's hands right now. That's not in our hands.
Okay.
So,
So that's not really something we can discuss as far as cutting this now? Okay.
So I would recommend that the new budget reflect this change, and we discuss now the timing of what's happening and going forward.
So right now, we're reducing the budget by 257.5,
Yes.
which somewhere around a 1.4 something percent increase.
Well, yeah, we probably should let them come up with the numbers, just, yes, I know.
It's basic math.
Well, Kristen will take this information and regenerate a new budget similar to the one we had. Once that's done, then we can start the process of scheduling the public hearings. And the second public hearing, it has to be advertised 3 times, I believe. And you have to have 2 public hearings. Is that correct?
Right, so the 2 public hearings are required. We don't need to have a second public workshop.
No,
A budget workshop, that's not required.
Cancel that Thursday if
That's
you want.
correct.
If we decide, well, we have to vote on this budget also, so.
Well, once,
Well, no,
Way I would
actually,
think it.
yeah.
once, we have the second public hearing, we can also schedule adoption of the budget after that.
Yes.
And then after that, then the finance director can take that budget, send it to the Department of Revenue, Division of Municipal Affairs, get their approval, for the ad that has to be placed 10 days before the budget referendum. And again, as that's going on, the canvassers, clerks do all kinds of things, as far as the ballots and voting and, finding a place to hold the referendum. So again, once this budget is updated, which hopefully can be tomorrow, then we'll check advertising, when can we get it in?
So where are you thinking we're not gonna be able to have it at the Civic Center then? You said, like, for where we're gonna have it?
No, because the summer program will be in swing at that
Well,
point.
Let me just, some things were brought to my attention before this meeting. We have it in the high school lobby. The problem with that is there's no air conditioning there. The Board of Canvassers is stressed that we don't do it in there because the sun beats in that lobby the entire day. And the last time we did it in July there was 90-something in that lobby, and they were there from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. So they have stressed not to go there. The Holy Ghost has offered their place for free, which is air conditioning, so the question is, do we want to move it down there? I don't know if we could section off the Civic Center per se, but
Why can't we just say summer camp is not running today? It's long enough notice, and just add on a day at the end.
because you've got parents and you've got programs already scheduled, and you've got
Probably
parents
paid for.
already paid for and whatever else.
But you could always schedule that.
No, that wouldn't be
On-
possible because we set up the day before and it's in there the day after. We need half of the day before and
You
the
take it
second
3
half of the day
days.
before and the first half of the day
Is
after.
there some way that's more central in Holy Ghost?
Can you do it here? Is that feasible to do it at Town Hall?
And we have court
Court
that
that night. Well, does it have to be on a Thursday night is the question. Does the
day.
vote have to be on a Thursday night is the question. Manny, I know you want to offer the senior center.
How big an area do you need?
It's not a bad idea.
It's
You
not
could
that big. We
accommodate
could
it.
do it, if we could
Need
fit it here, I know
parking.
we could fit in the
Yeah,
senior center.
Parking's the issue.
We got our activity. There's plenty,
There's parking in the
there's a
back.
lot of parking there.
You got on street in the back parking. I mean, here, if you do it here, we've done it here in the past. I forgot what
There's
election.
less parking here than there is at the senior center.
Presidential ballots. are done
Presidential, we
here.
did here.
Yes.
You got the across the street that's vacant right now that you could use for parking. So my question is, do we have to do it on a Thursday night? Can it be a Wednesday night and just take all the chairs out of here?
But then doing that, but the town financial meeting has to be 48 hours before, so no matter what, that would have to be a Monday then, right? I mean,
We've already followed the charter as far as dates. Now, I think we could set the nights that we want.
let me ask you,
At that point,
let me
it doesn't
ask,
have to be a
how
Tuesday
far,
or
how
Thursday.
far in advance notice do the public hearings have to be? So like, can we have a public hearing before Tuesday's council meeting, or does that have to be further advance notice?
We have the charter has the requirements. I wrote them down. I have a charter as well, but I think I summarized them.
10 days after.
I think it's
the public
5
hearing.
days and 10 days.
Yeah, so I think there's two. Hold on, I'll look at the charter.
And Major, not, maybe before, like, I know we did, you did the robocall last time, but especially with this one, because the other one, even though it's the same week every year, people still don't know. This one, it's gonna be even worse, and people are gonna be on vacation, unfortunately. I mean, we're gonna do our best to try to get the word out there, and from all aspects. Reach out to, obviously, it's in the newspaper, but the local, maybe like
Right.
social media and I-95, the radio station, any way we can to get the word out.
So, but the public hearing has to be advertised three times.
And the third one has to be 3 days before the public hearing. The third advertisement has to be
At least,
minimum of
at
3
least.
days before the
Right.
public
Do
hearing.
they have to be so many days apart? Is there time, so my question is there time to do the first hearing at next Tuesday's council meeting? Yes or no?
Yes.
Uh,
We could advertise it tomorrow.
Well, again, you have to, the budget has to be redone. Then that will be sent to the
No.
newspaper
No,
for
the
the
pub-
advertising.
We're not gonna have, we're not gonna have a final budget until we do the two other hearings, right?
Well, the question is, if you're gonna have a public hearing on what?
We can't vote on a budget.
No, but the public
Until we have
hearing
the two
has to
public
be
hearings.
based on the budget that he's going to submit to us, so he has to make those changes to the budget submitted to us, all on the same day, just like he did last time.
Yeah.
So that's,
Right,
yes.
so this will be, so what the changes that were made
Correct.
tonight will be incorporated into a new budget,
Correct,
and that will be the basis of what the public will be discussing
correct,
at the public hearings.
right.
And then at the second public hearing, the council can schedule a meeting and adopt the budget as that budget or a change budget.
Correct.
And at that point, then, the budget will be submitted to the state, and they'll review it, give us the go-ahead, because they also review the ad that's placed, in the newspaper, and that ad has to be at least 10 days before the financial town meeting, I believe. So those are the requirements, as well as what, the clerk and canvassers has to do.
Cool. I mean, that's
So
my
we'll get that,
suggestion.
as
We
soon
at
as soon as the budget's done, it'll be sent to it could be the ad can be put together, and that would be sent to the Kent County, as long as they can get them, as soon as available time, it could be placed in there. So you have, you could have 3 consecutive days, doesn't have to be.
Do we have a rough idea now of what date the budget's gonna be, is the actual budget vote is gonna take place? So when people start asking us, we have enough notice to go, this is the day the vote is gonna take place. Knowing all the things we have.
Okay, well,
And
once,
One thing I'd like to see, and you're gonna, somebody from Hague for this, is the day we have the all-day financial vote, per se, that I'd like to see the finance director up there the whole entire day or somebody from this town hall, up there to answer any questions, because people were there to ask questions, and they're reading a billboard in front of them, and again, 3.9% levy. They're thinking, that's my tax rate, 3.9%. One of the individuals we spoke to the other night at the last council meeting, he took his valuation with his new tax rate, and he came up to the mic and said, I'm gonna see a $2,000 increase, or whatever it was, a very substantial increase. Well, he was taking the old tax rate at 27, not the 22. People don't see that. People don't, so, I fully understand that, we have, and people don't come here, okay? I'm looking at this crowd now, everyone's either an employee or a former employee or the town side, okay? We've had sessions here, right, that people don't get here. Let's face it, it's beautiful out. I sometimes don't wanna be here on a night like tonight, so, and it's my duty to be here. And the one place they all show up is the day of the vote. 800 and something
Yeah,
people showed up.
All 860 of them.
And
29,000.
I was there for 2 hours. I was on the outside. I came in, checked out the counts. But people usually talk to me after they voted and said, I voted this because of this or that. And when you started explaining things to them, they're like, oh, wait a minute. One person went in there and said, I'm voting this because the schools get paid too much. Well, the schools went level funded, sir. Did they? Oh, I didn't know.
Are we allowed to have somebody up there, though?
For
Well-
questions and answers, to sit in the side and say, I am the finance director, I am the town manager, if you have any questions, I don't think any of us,
I think you
Could be
have
in
to
I
be
think-
50 feet away from the
Yes,
entrance.
you cannot be inside there.
No.
us, I'm saying us, somebody answer
No.
questions.
Well,
No,
but,
not
but.
at
I
all.
think you're wrong. I think you're wrong.
Okay, well, we could,
I
we
think
could.
you're 100% wrong. on
Can
that.
we get?
You're not saying vote, you're not holding a sign, you can't politic. You can't sit there and the town manager can't say, vote yes and hold a sign or have a shirt, vote Pedro, okay? He's gonna sit there and answer a question. If somebody says, hey, why is this 1.7% increase? And tell me what it's going to. Well, 950,000 is going to healthcare, $200,000 going to this, 300 and something thousand dollars is going to future contract negotiations. Because that was one thing I heard throughout this time too, was, oh, vote no because we don't know what the contracts are. Well, we kind of do. We put 300 and something thousand dollars aside for those contracts, okay? So when people are saying vote no because of the contracts, because of that reason, why can't town officials, like the town manager and the finance director or deputy finance director be there to answer strictly those questions. Not say support or don't support the vote. I can totally see if Ernie made a phone call and a robocall and said, vote yes, click, vote yes. You look in Coventry right now, there's political signs everywhere, vote yes on June 13th. Down everybody's lawn, on town property, off town property, everywhere. So don't tell me we can't have somebody to give somebody information when they're putting political signs on town property.
I agree, and actually, I got multiple calls and emails saying, how come nobody was there to explain it? I mean, if you could look into it to find out, I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a
We
great
can,
idea.
we can also have material prepared that potentially could go out to the public beforehand, so they have an opportunity to review it, because when you go to vote, you've probably made up your mind already.
Of course, yeah.
You
So-
made up your mind, but you made up your mind with the proper information.
So that has to be before voting day. So
know,
we need to get the information
Factual,
out in a.
not whether they should vote yes or no, but
No.
factual information so they can make their decision based on
This
the
$10 million for the pension contribution is this percent police, this percent fire, this percent active, this percent, with a nice pie chart.
a smaller, rather than like our big thick budget, something that's a little bit more.
Palatable, so they
Palatable,
understand.
yes.
So
Bert
we
has a
can do
question
that.
over there.
First, I'll moderate, I think if you put out a 20 questionnaire, yes or no, and pass that out to the villagers that are going in and they can see it in black and white, it's right in front of them. I think that's what it's worth. Put it all out there.
And we're all coming up with the same answer.
And all you have to do is put 20 questions and answer.
We need to
I don't see why we wouldn't be
communicate.
able to have somebody there, because, because if you're going by like regular election day, you couldn't, like, you don't have a lot of information of like, what is Councilman Licciardi stand for, and what does Councilman Messian stand for, right? But when you go into the budget vote, there is some information about the budget there. It's very vague, but, I mean, I don't know, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Is it possible some type of literature drop?
Yes,
By the council of Wyden Town?
yes.
Little,
Not by
Again.
now,
little
not by now.
flyer that you stick in the door?
I don't know, because when it comes to elections, I don't know how that works as far, even if it's just informational, I don't know.
We can put out a flyer.
I don't know, it's
Yes,
the
we can.
same.
Timmy, what do you think?
Cranston,
Yeah.
They would have certain items like referendum
Timmy's been
items,
really quiet
and
tonight.
they would go out and do literature drops.
You know,
We-
and a good idea, you could get each council member to get some volunteers in their district to go out and drop 15 or 20 of these things out. And
Bert, you might have a council member who says no on this
I'd be
budget.
willing to do that.
I had a
I'm
call
just
from
saying.
my
In
former
both
boss,
wards.
who lives in a condominium complex. They were having their monthly meeting. They wanted to know what date the vote was going to be on, because they all came out favorably after the revow, and that was an incentive for them to have this budget passed. So they, I mean, it was a big, one of the big complexes.
So we're all saying it different ways, but the bottom line is communication, getting the word out, the timing, and what the budget represents is what we need to do. So,
And again, tomorrow I'll check with the solicitor, and Mary Ann, maybe you could check with the Board of Canvassers. We'll see what we can do. If that's possible to have someone there, I'd be happy to, and have the information, but that's something that
but we
has
still,
to be checked into.
we need to do that beforehand. Having you there is one thing, but it
I
has
agree,
to,
that's
the
fine.
word has to get out beforehand. And so I think that's even more important than having somebody there. I don't
Again,
think it
there are
hurts.
people asking Board of Canvassers questions about the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
There's
they should know
questions-
this before they walk in, don't you think?
Okay.
Well,
Guys,
again,
come on. Think about it, you're reading on Facebook, I'm getting 4% tax increase, okay?
so shame on us for not getting the word out.
And again, you're reading it, they're believing it, they're going in with one thing in their head. No. I'm gonna tell you right now, I know I can give you 5 people that if you went 0% today, based upon their assessments, they're voting no. Because Sal's right. You have your condos or whoever may be favorable. But there are people that have come to me and said, David, I don't care if you go minus 2%, my taxes are still going up, and I'm voting no. Okay, vote no, thank you. They told me the process is flawed, fix it. Well, I can't fix this year's evaluation, that's what it is. You know, and there's nothing you can do. If you appealed it, so be it. Like I said, there's still gonna be 25% is gonna see an increase, 50% is gonna stay in that couple $100 marker, and there's gonna be 25% seeing a decrease at 0%. So that's how it is. But again, when people are taking their assessment, and it says in bold letters, do not take tax rate times your assessment, because this is gonna change, and they still go ahead and do it, and there's a lot of people that do it.
Well, but in fairness, on the website, it did say 2019 tax rate. So there was some confusion there. So we just need to do a better job communicating. So you're gonna have the changes made, Ernie. We're gonna reduce it, or Kristen or whoever, Joanne's gonna take the $257,500, reduce the budget, have it ready. There is no budget workshop on Thursday, correct?
Correct.
Everybody? Okay.
Correct.
And we will set a timeline as quickly as we can.
Right. And the controlling date will be the first day that it can appear in the Kent County Times. After that, then the schedule can be developed.
Okay.
Ernie, could you just speak up? People can't hear you
Oh,
on video.
sorry. Yeah. The controlling date is going to be the first public hearing, notification of the ad for the first public hearing, when that occurs. So, once the ad goes to the Kent County Times, as soon as they can get it in the paper, whatever that next day is, then we'll do the 3 public hearings, and then we'll have to be
Two
able to
public
schedule.
hearings.
I'm sorry, 2 public hearings, 3 notices,
Right.
2 public hearings, and then we'll be able to, once the ad, we'll know, we can have a timeline and schedule for the rest of the process.
And I assume, and it's easy for me to say because I'm not doing it, that the format's gonna be exactly the same what was published the first time. So it's
Exactly.
just changing, so that shouldn't be that difficult.
Nope.
It's
No,
a
just-
question of notifying the Times and saying, hey, we want to get this in ASAP.
Change the ad, and as soon,
Correct.
ask them to get them as soon as they can, yes.
Okay, perfect.
So let me ask you this. I know we talked about, does the charter say that the vote has to be 2 days after the financial town meeting?
I do believe it does.
It
So I can't
actually
bring it up
says,
on my computer.
I believe it says the Thursday
following
immediately
Thursday.
following the Tuesday, and the
Right.
Tuesday is the third Tuesday in May.
Right.
So
So
Where-
so the question is.
it is
what-
moot.
So the question I ask at this
Yes.
point, now the charter is moot because it only talks about May. So
Right.
let's just say we had a financial town meeting on a Thursday night. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday rolls around and we have a vote either on Monday or Tuesday. That way there you can have it here in town hall, or you can pick a better place for the board of canvassers to work that day. Can you see those options? Can you check those options? So there'd be 2 options you gotta check right now. Does the vote have to happen on a Thursday? And can a finance director or town manager be in place, or deputy finance, be in place to answer questions for the public at the polling
Well,
place?
and the third question, does it have to be spread 48 hours apart as well?
Yeah.
With all due respect, you talk about efficiency, but I don't think taking the town manager away from his job for an entire day, or the finance director or the deputy finance director away from their position for an entire day to answer questions, when people have plenty of opportunity to come and ask and answer their questions.
But
I don't think that's being very efficient.
Joanne, I can understand that, maybe do it in shifts, but I could tell you this, if it gets voted down again, what efficiency do we have then? Because then it's somebody come into personnel.
I doubt they're going to allow anybody that is not an election official to spend from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in a polling place.
Maybe, I'm just asking you to give me
explaining
the answer.
budget. Yeah, I have it written down.
If it's a no, then it's a moot point.
Exactly, we could be, and again, then we don't even have to argue about it.
Can we put something on the website?
As far as the date,
No.
Yes, even
Information? Yes.
Yeah.
Document.
Yes, it
Yes.
needs,
To make it clear.
Simple,
I agree, it should be not only on the website, it should be the top item of what
One thing, I'm sorry, Jay.
No, go ahead.
One thing that what the taxpayers know is not the levy. They want to know the tax increase, okay?
They don't care about anything else.
They don't care about state aid, they don't care about anything else. They care about tax increase, okay?
That's all I've been asking.
And-
people.
and
What's
that-
the tax rate?
That, and then I think the tax rate, the tax increase, the proposed tax rate, and then the highlights. What's the highlights of the budget? Obviously, healthcare is a highlight of the budget. Increase of healthcare, $900-something thousand.
Yeah, we're,
Increase to OPEB, or contribution to OPEB, $150,000. If the taxpayer, the town employee, the taxpayer / town employee can understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, you might not have to answer those questions,
And-
exactly
and
what
I-
you're saying. But,
Right.
yeah,
but I've had, as a council person here, we've had Saturday workshops, we've had nighttime
Yeah, it doesn't
workshops,
matter.
we've had midnight workshops, we've ordered pizza here, Bert, you've sat here through them with us. It's frustrating because 1, 2, 3 people show up. And the previous town manager and finance director sat here and scheduled 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock questionnaires
Yep.
after hours.
nobody showed up. A
Four,
couple of people.
5,
couple of
a
people.
handful showed up. You know, it is frustrating. It's just, you know, I came before the pension board last night and explained that, you know, the pension board was told that me specifically am not supporting MERS. And I said, I came before the pension board last night and said, listen, I don't know what you guys are hearing, but people on that board are on social media saying we're not funding the pension, which is untrue. The ARC is the fund. Annual
Yes,
requested contribution
required.
is almost $10 million. Is it an unfunded liability? Absolutely. That's where they're confusing the public. Yes, the pension is an unfunded liability. Yes, we are many millions of dollars of unfunded. But this council and some council and the councils before this over the last 5 years have contributed to the ARC. Now, it was even brought to us that the ARC was missed by a couple of hundred, almost $200,000. We as a council have corrected that just in the last meeting. So when people are out there saying, and those people, and I pointed out, I said to the board, I didn't bring up any names, I said, but if you're out there as appointed official of the town, and you're on Facebook or wherever saying we're not funding the pension, we're not, and that scares employees, that scares the retirees, when they think we're not funding it. Because they're not here every time. So they just hear, oh, they're not funding it. They're not understanding that we are. And I just said, you know, misinformation is what hurts everybody. And as long as we get the information out there and the proper information, it should be all right. But if...
What is the letter for?
Well, because not everybody's on the social media either. Bert?
When you were at that meeting last night, did you happen to ask what the return was in that portfolio?
They went through a few different things last night, but it was about...
You never did get what they for.
Well, they were talking, there was actually a gentleman who came to the microphone and stated...
Who's handling the portfolio?
Clearwater?
Clearbrook,
Clearbrook, I'm sorry, Clearwater Brook, if...
yeah.
But, no, they talked about it last night, and actually a gentleman came to the microphone, he was comparing West Warwick and MERS, and he brought the contributions, it was like 5%, 4%. He went through the last 10 years with the pension board, and I was sitting right behind him, and he had all his numbers right in a row, and, you know, he was comparing it to MERS and whatever, and we were talking about, and one thing that was brought up as an analysis was, you know, West Warwick going into MERS possibly, or whatever, and those are things that we're trying to save money on, and whatever, was looking at, you know, West Warwick's taking their 2 pennies and throwing it in that fountain where all that change is. You know, so it's a much bigger pot to deal with if it goes into MERS. So those are all things that were discussed last night, how to save money. And that's the first thing that they were talking about, is how to save money. And that gentleman stood up. Well, that gentleman stood up, well, that too, but that gentleman stood up last night and said, over the last 5 years, just in your administrative fees, you could have saved the pension over $500,000 if we were in MERS. And he stood up and said that, and he had his figures right to a T from what Seth Magaziner said that night, what he had, and he said, you know, these are things that we need to look at. So, I mean, the town has their eyes open, employees have their eyes open on how to save money. Yes, people have come to me with ideas. Do I agree with their ideas all the time? Absolutely not. Have I taken their ideas? Absolutely. You know, you got to look at the big picture when somebody says cut this position, that position, and You say, okay, but why? You know, just because you don't think it's there or whatever, but we have to look at the big picture all the way around. You know, we need to do a better job. I take some blame for that last time. We didn't get out there and,
We all
I mean,
do.
I did
We
a
all
little
do.
bit of battling
We
on
all do.
Facebook, but I'll
No.
tell you right now, it's not worth it.
That's not the venue to do it in.
No, but when
Yeah.
you're trying to correct something.
Not battling on Facebook, but
No,
trust me, that's my life. But making a public statement on Facebook, at least everywhere, social media, newspaper, making a public statement of the facts, and you don't have to even respond to anything, just one statement. I mean, I know Jay hates Facebook, so I mean, in general, for that reason, but I still think that it's a forum where we should put information
You
out
can
there.
put the information out there, but I'm telling you right now, I'll put the information out there. I'm not getting into the banter, because all I responded was to somebody who said, car taxes are going up 36%,
Yeah.
which they're going up 0, and everybody's seeing a reduction in their car taxes. And then I started getting attacks of, why are we spending $300,000 on hotels? No, that's revenue. You're on the revenue page. And I was done at that point, because I can't stay up past 10 o'clock anymore, and I wasn't gonna bother arguing with individuals over that when they can come here. I mean, they can come here anytime, they can talk to us, they know our number, they can call us. I don't have a problem, I'll put it out there, but I'm not getting into the banter. I'm just gonna say, here's what, I'll put together whatever the town manager and us agree upon.
Right.
I'll put it out there on my page, on the Ward 2 page, and my personal page. And then that's it. I'm not getting into banter. I'm just making it clear now.
Well, since you can't stay up past 10 o'clock, I'll make a motion
Well,
to
one
adjourn.
last thing, one last thing.
Okay.
I think, and I'm not gonna belabor the point, I think we should have the meeting on a Thursday night at the Civic Center. The day 1 and 3 for setup and breakdown, it can all be roped off. It's not a big area. And I feel that on Thursday, camp should be closed. If you wanted to add a day to the end, that's fine. It all could be done. I think it just muddies the waters. I think we've done as a council, whether we agree, disagree, as long as we agree to get the information out to the public, it should be done in advance, just like we're doing right now. And I don't see, when I go in to vote as a taxpayer, that I've had the opportunity to ask the questions. I know what you're saying, but I'm not gonna go in and search out anybody from the town hall to ask questions. When I go in, I knew how I wanted to vote going in. I wanted to be, go in, not stand in line, make my vote and leave. So, for you to be there, no offense, I agree with you with this. I don't think you're needed. Again, I understand what you're saying too, but I think there's productivity can be done. People are gonna vote how they're gonna vote. You know?
If we get the answer and it's a no, it won't even be an issue anyway. I mean, it'll be a moot point. I'd like to know anyway factually if it would even be possible.
But Thursday at the Civic Center, I think if we change that, we stop making other changes, I think we should do what's possible to keep it consistent, keep it the same. Because then we'll be crucified for making the changes. You know, all of us will.
I mean,
So they're not
it's
gonna
gonna,
about the vote because they got their children with them and they don't have time to go. I mean, it's the end of
But
the day.
that's any time though. I mean, one thing I've learned is keep it consistent.
no matter what, July is gonna be a little off anyway.
Let me just point out this, and Jay, you were part of this was a year ago or 2 years ago, when basketball was going on the other side of the gymnasium at 6 or 7 o'clock, and the Board of Canvassers said, we can't tolerate, Bert, you were there, we can't tolerate this.
So why were they
when
allowed in?
Wait a minute, so when the Board of Canvassers is working all day long there, and people are coming over talking to them, and you have a bunch of screaming children behind you playing basketball, kickball, running around, you can put ropes all you want, but as soon
No,
as
you rope off the day of the setup, okay? We have staff there that says, don't go beyond this point, don't touch it, put caution tape around it. Do the same thing on day 3 for the breakdown, until it's taken out.
I'm talking about the
On
day of.
Day of, you cancel the camp. You have enough in notice, Steve.
When is the last time that you can remember that the budget turned out?
2012.
2012.
Was it 2012?
It was turned down because, totally opposite effect though. 2012, it was turned down because the council cut the 5% from the schools. And then we had the 1,200-person rally up at the schools between the cafeteria and
Yep.
the auditorium saying, give the 5% back. They wanted, so what we cut, they wanted back.
Yeah.
So we gave it back. And that was a pretty easy decision at that time. Okay, we took the money, now you want it back? Well, fine. Don't come to us and say, cut it again, because we're not gonna have that opportunity
That's
again.
when they voted, that's when they voted over there, right, by hand?
Yeah.
Paper ballot,
Yes.
right? And that's what all the old timers left around 10 o'clock and 10:30. And the people that were left were the firemen, the policemen, and the workers, and
Well,
those that were-
again, they all, no, that was another whole time. You're going back,
That's
I think you're going way back when the Vin Mazzul rally days of '93. You know, and I hate to say it, I'll go back to '93 real quick. The first year I bought my house here, I went to one meeting. And I think Mayor O'Hare said we need a 10% tax increase. Everybody wanted to crucify her. Well, I bought my house in '93 and I got 2 supplementals, and guess what that tax increase was? It was over 10%. So they crucified her, got her out of office, but the state came in and did what she was gonna do, so
There's still one more item on the agenda.
I cut 2. I was only here for that half. Ernie?
Go ahead.
Yes, there's still one more item on the agenda under discussion action, sending out the motor vehicles taxes on time.
So one thing that rose, and I think Sal, going back and forth on email, motor vehicle taxes has 0 effect on motor vehicle taxes, so the rate's still the 28 change. So we'd send out the motor vehicle tax, so we'd be on time with that, and that would also keep a little bit of revenue coming in. Does anybody have a problem with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I ask one question, though? So what happens there? So does that double your work?
Well, yes. Yeah, extends it because we'll have. It extends it because we have to mail out the bills. Well, motor vehicle will mail them out on time. Sewer will be going out the same time as motor vehicle as well. So you'll have revenue coming in. But then once we're hoping that the budget passes, we have to send out the real estate intangible. We won't be able to get those printed probably until end of July. And the due date will have to be approximately like August 15th.
So, 2012, that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
What about the,
Hold on. It went out mid-July, end of July. Everybody thought they had to be in here by July 31st, but no, it'll probably be the same exact effect, August 15th to August 31st being, August 30th, 31st, whatever.
And also, we have an insert for each and every bill being mailed out to state that they no longer can pay their taxes at the
lockbox,
banks.
right.
And also the new lockbox address that their bills will have to be mailed to as well, because that, hopefully, we're going to be going live June 30th is the going live date. We've had training and all the testing has been done and it's been going well.
That'll be a what bill, Rose? Will that go on?
all of them?
All of them?
Yes.
Well,
The sewer bill is still gonna go out on time, correct? 'Cause that's not.
yes, and motor vehicle.
Okay.
It definitely contacts everybody, it doesn't go to a mortgage company, so that's good. And they can see that sewer tax doesn't go to a mortgage company, so they'll
Okay.
see that.
Yeah, and then once the real estate and tangible bills are mailed, we'll send out, and we'll put something in the newspaper as well, stating that they have until the 15th of August. And also reiterate the lockbox and
Okay.
the whole 9 yards of that, so.
So-
And then we'll also post it on the website as well.
Perfect.
So when real estate goes out, if it goes out late, when will the chances be for people to appeal?
That's a question for Sal. Isn't it 30 days after they go out? After they get the bill?
No, it's 90 days from the last date, the first date that the tax bill is due. So if the real estate bill is due August 15th,
Yep.
they would have 90 days from that Normally, October 13th is the date, the last date. It'd be pushed back another 30 days or whatever, how many days that we, once we decide on the exact date.
All right, thank you.
Motor vehicle is 45 days from the day they're mailed.
So with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Now can I make a motion to
Yep.
adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Ron?